Thank you for joining us. You're listening to the Beyond 50 radio program. I'm Daniel Davis, along with Devin DeCuna, and today we're going to be talking about a very unique subject that I think is very poignant when it comes to the approach of 2012, especially with the state that the world is in. The book today is Well Whispers and Lion Roars, and our guest today is one of the world's leading animal intuitives and healers. Her writing has appeared in various magazines, and she's also been featured on several animal documentaries. She's also author of The Exchange of Love and writes Pause for Thought. I'd like to welcome to the Beyond 50 radio program today our very special guest, Miss Madeline Walker. Madeline, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Now, my first question is, how did you become an animal intuitive? What kind of things were going on in your life that led you in that direction, where you traveled, as I understand, around the world several times, many continents, and I mean, that's an amazing life that you've chosen for yourself.
Well, it just sort of happened and escalated, really. It all started with a little Jack Russell puppy that I was cuddling, and I just suddenly looked at me, and I heard these words in my head, and I knew they weren't coming from me, and the puppy was giving me a really long, hard stare, and I just had this feeling that the words in my head were coming from this little dog. And it wasn't, well, of course it was quite shocking in a way, but it was something I wasn't really looking for. It was a real surprise, and I thought I'd gone completely crazy. But it was also the subject matter of what the dog was saying to me. It was talking about, it was a reincarnation of my friend's old dog, and this little dog belonged to my friend. And I thought, okay, so I'm hearing a voice that I feel is coming from this little dog, and it's also talking about reincarnation. And I just thought, okay, so now I've really gone crazy. So I put the little puppy down because I was a bit shocked. And then looking at its little Jack Russell face, it suddenly started to almost like morph into an adult border collie head. So then I thought, okay, I'm really crazy now. But it had very specific spots on its muzzle, and then just as suddenly went back to being a little Jack Russell again, and I thought, oh my gosh, what's going on here? And instead of having the courage to say to my friend, did you used to have a border collie? I just said to her, have you had a dog before? And she said, no, not for years. Why do you ask? And I said, well, you're going to think I'm completely crazy, but your little dog has told me that it's a reincarnation of your old dog, and he's shown me the face of a border collie. And she said, yeah, I had a border collie called Briar. And so I said, have you got a photograph of of your old dog? And she said, oh, I'll find one. And so she showed it to me, and it's exactly what the puppy had shown me, with the spots exactly on the muzzle. So then I thought, okay, what does all this mean? Has my life gone completely mad? But then it was like a vertical learning curve. All these animals started speaking to me and telling me about their physical and emotional problems, and those of their owners as well. So it appeared more and more that the animals were trying to tell me how I could help not only them but their owners as well. And so I just felt that I needed to expand this, and I had the chance to go on some amazing journeys and meet and have encounters with the most incredible animals. And I realized that these wild species also have very important things to tell us and to teach us. And so I was compelled to write the book to convey their messages.
You know, Madeline, I was wondering, do you only communicate with the whales, or do you communicate with all animals? And what are the conversations like between you and the animals?
I communicate with all animals. We can all do this. It isn't something that I'm special. It's special that we can do it, but we can all do it. All of the indigenous tribes for thousands and thousands of years have believed in the wisdom of animals and all living things, trees, the plants, the rocks, the crystals. They believe that they all have a voice, and if we only open our hearts and minds and sort of remind ourselves, just stretch those old muscles that have got a bit rusty, that we can all do this. So you can get information from anything, from a housefly, a guinea pig, to a humpback whale. They all have something to say. and it's quite mind-blowing.
You know, Madeline, I think one of the things I'm most interested in is what did you learn from the various animals you met during your journey, and describe what it was like to encounter a 40-foot whale.
Being in the water next to a whale is almost indescribable, but I have to find a way to describe it. They're just the most gentle, accepting, incredible beings. I spent, together with a group of people, about 4 hours in the ocean next to a huge whale mother and her calf. And just being in the ocean next to them with the calf coming up to you and eyeballing you, and the mother just resting, just coming up for a breath, feeding the calf, and allowing the calf to interact within our group was just the most humbling, mind-blowing experience. And I found it actually, I think, so awe-inspiring that I found it really hard to communicate with her as I was physically next to her, because I think I was so blown away by it. I had to keep pinching myself to really appreciate that I actually was in the water next to a whale, and its baby was coming up to me and looking at me right in the eye, and then swimming off again. So what I did was, later on when I was in my bunk, we lived on the boat out in the ocean for a week with almost about 150 whales at any one time all around us. So it was just incredible. But in my bunk in the evening, I just imagined I could open up my mind again. I could imagine that the mother whale was there in front of me. And then I was able to write notes of what she was giving, information she was giving me. And the main message was that I asked her and thanked her so much about her patience and willingness to allow us to be next to her and her baby, of course, her calf. And she said that the main message she wanted to teach us was the lesson of trust, that she wanted to show us that despite what us humans have done to the whales for so many hundreds and hundreds of years, that she was willing to trust us, to show us that we needed to trust ourselves and to learn much more about ourselves. And it was just so humbling. Amazing all at once.
Now
experience.
You talk about Pillow, okay? Tell us about Pillow here, because it was an amazing message that you were given.
Pillow was the most gorgeous dog that I had for a very short time, and it broke my heart because she was killed on the road outside our house by a motorbike. And we had a big 2-acre garden, and we still didn't know to this day how she got out on the road. And it was so devastating because she was still so young and such an adorable dog. I mean, her silly name, she was just called Pillow because she was just so cuddly. She was like a soft, cuddly pillow, and she gave so much love to everybody. And when I came back from being with the whales, I felt very strange having been with them for a whole week. So coming back to the hotel, I felt quite bereft and I felt quite nauseous. And so I thought perhaps I was a little dehydrated, but I went to my hotel room and I started to feel really emotional. And then I felt Pillow come through to me in my mind. And I started to really get upset and just said, "Oh, I can't believe I lost you," and all that sort of thing. And she said to me, "You never lost me. You know, you humans are so hung up on death and dying. It's just another part of life. It's just another dimension. And, you know, we are always around, and there is no separation. And that we can choose to just remain pure energy, or we can choose to come back together again." That's why I felt that the message from the Jack Russell puppy about reincarnation so comforting, because I feel that we all travel in soul groups, and that our animals that we love so much are part of that group as well. And so it reassures me, even though, of course, when an animal that I love passes, and there's everybody that's ever lost a pet that they love, it is devastating. But to know that they are around us and that they can choose to come back to us, I just find enormously comforting, and, again, a huge privilege that they would choose to share their journey with us.
You know, Madeline, you mentioned earlier about how you have met animals who have been a reincarnation of humans who have passed away in the past, but do you have any more encounters of that? Because I personally think that's fascinating, and it's really
So
good
humans that have come back as pets, or pets that have been human before? I didn't quite hear you, I'm sorry.
Actually, Madeline, he actually brings up to me, it was an interesting point. My parents had owned 3 Shih Tzus. Well, they have 2 now, but 3 of the original Shih Tzu dogs that they owned have all since passed. But I remember the 3rd one they bought was one of the most adorable dogs I've ever seen, and it was through the eyes that I was seeing this animal. It was already a beautiful little animal as it was, but looking through the eyes, I kind of wondered, was this a reincarnation where, let's just pretend for a moment, this was a human being who got the lesson, came back as this adorable little Shih Tzu into a family where it would be nothing but loved and spoiled. What a way to come back into life.
Absolutely, and what a wonderful way to be able to show, to give, not only receive, but to give unconditional love.
Right.
To be a little lapdog so that it would be placed upon the solar plexus where it could feed so much self-esteem, self-worth, all that love into the solar plexus and into the heart chakra, obviously, to just ooze love. And what better way than to be an adorable little dog? I mean, it's a huge role to play, and we have to remember that our animals are so much more than we think they are. You know, they are these huge sentient beings bundled up in this little fluffy, adorable in a package. I have 2 kittens that are, as we speak, trashing my office, running around the place, and I've just recently acquired them, and I believe that they are. One is a reincarnation of my old cat that passed several months ago, and the other one is, of all things, a very, very special goat that I had, and she told me that she wanted to come back as a cat because she didn't like living in a stable. She wanted to be able to be nearer me and to be able to snuggle up on my bed, and that made a lot of sense to me because if, as a goat, she could have done that, she would have done that. And so I've got these 2 brothers, and as you were saying, through the eyes is how you recognize. Something about the eyes just creates that sense of knowing. And it's just incredible. I just feel so blessed to have them back, even though they are climbing up the curtains and wreaking havoc around the place.
Madeline, I just had a text here by one of the guests who are listening into the Beyond 50 radio program here, and as we were talking about reincarnation, and I find this to be an interesting comment. And as I was talking about how this could be a human who possibly reincarnated into this adorable little lapdog, as we were talking about, this guest here says, I think some men are turned into pigs. It happens when you love money. And I think to myself, do we have some kind of a prejudice against pigs, that these are bad animals? Tell us about your experience.
Pigs are wonderful. They're so intelligent and they're so affectionate. I adore pigs. I've had several pet pigs, and they're just so intelligent. So I think it's a big insult to pigs.
Well, tell us what the pigs that they've communicated to you besides, I wonder, humans really love eating us. We must taste good. It's just a bad joke, but anyway, tell us, what has been your communication with pigs?
Well, to be honest, I haven't had that many messages from pigs. I've had pig companions, but again, just very, very loving, just very funny. They would do, if I was feeling a bit down, they would do something just to make me laugh, and just huge characters. I had a pot-belly pig called Lucy, and she had a real passion for I think we call them jello sandwiches. We call them jam sandwiches in the UK. And she would come to the door, and she would just stand at the door next to my kitchen, and she would grunt, and all my pots and pans in the kitchen would rattle with the vibration of her grunting. And she would have her sandwich, and then she would go away again. And she was just so lovely with my children as well. They used to put a scarf around her neck if it was cold. And she just gave them so much love, and was just the most wonderful companion. So I have huge respect for pigs. They're so aware of what we're doing. They knew the routine so well. I had a a herd of milking goats, and my other pet pig, Mabel, she was always allowed to have the last dregs of the goat's milk that was all frothy. And she would know at the last goat that I was milking, and she would hear the sound of when I was stripping out the udder and the very last sort of squirts, and she would start to then squeal and squeal, because she was so excited, because she knew that then very soon she was going to get all the frothy bottom of the bucket to drink out, and she was just amazing. So again, they just blow my mind, and all the animals can just give you so much information and just give you so much love.
You know, Madeline, when Dan brought up the pigs, I was wondering if you have a favorite animal you like to communicate with the most, or do you have a preference?
I love all animals. I mean, I have to say, on a day-to-day basis, I mainly work with dogs and horses. And horses, I feel, have taught me most of the healing techniques that I use now. And so horses are a huge favourite. But with the wild species, some of the creatures I have met have just been absolutely amazing. Obviously, the whales, I have the whales and dolphins, but I've also been with whale sharks and giant mantas. And again, being in their energy field in the ocean next to them, and them accepting you and being very gentle and giving you the messages, and just it's just incredible. And elephants, I think lions also, adore lions, and especially the white lions, because they're so sacred and just so beautiful.
I was going to bring up Mara, as a matter of fact. Describe Mara. That was a fascinating story.
Mara was sort of prophesied by the Shangaan elders in South Africa. Rather like the First Nation Americans talk about the white buffalo. When the white buffalo returns, they believe that the earth can start to be healed. The Shangaan tribe believe that when the white lions return to their homeland of Timbavati, which is the only place in South Africa or any place in the world where the white lions were born free. There was a white genes within the tawny lions, and it was prophesied that when the white lions return to Timbavati, Africa can start to be healed. And so Mara was the lioness that was sort of an iconic lioness that was rescued from a zoo by this amazing lady called Linda Tucker, who managed to buy this land to create a special reserve for them so that she could create a wild pride of white lions that could survive in the wild. And so she rescued this beautiful lioness with her 3 cubs. And all was going really well. They managed to make some kills and to survive in the wild, but they'd had very heavy rainfall, and Mara, her speciality was to dig in the burrows of warthogs. And tragically, one day she was digging to get a warthog out to feed her cubs, and the whole burrow collapsed on top of her, and she was killed. And everybody was completely in a state of shock, because it wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposedly the lioness that was going to create the new pride to bring the healing to Africa. So when I went to visit them, her daughter, Zara, and her 2 brothers had survived. Obviously, they'd managed to somehow feed themselves, and a new male lion had been brought in to mate with Zara, and this male was one that I really connected with at a distance. I was sent an email with the website of these white lions, and this beautiful male lion, who's in the book, there's a photograph of him, called Mandla, just called me, and I just knew I had to get there. And it took me 2 years to save the money to go out to see them. But when I went there and met the pride, and I looked at Zaira, I suddenly, in I suppose my inner eye, saw these like tumbling stars coming down above her head, and I felt it was Mara's energy coming through. And Mara told me that Zaira's new daughter, Nebu, was going to be the one that was going to carry the energy forward for 2012, and that she would fulfill the prophecy. And at that stage, Nebu was quite small, very cute. But I've heard now that she has obviously grown a lot, and that she is actually taking a very strong role as a hunter and just really making her presence and strength felt within the pride. So I can't wait to get back there as soon as I can afford it, to go back and see their progress, and to see Nebu, especially for 2012, would be amazing, to see how she is really grown into herself and fulfilling her role, which is a very special mission that she has. But it's beautiful to know that Mara is, again, like Pillow, looking down and guiding and still being of help to us all.
You know, Madeline, one of the things I was interested in is, maybe just to go along with that question, what kind of important messages have the animals told you, and can you share anything they have told you to us?
I think the whales, the most important message from the whales is really that we need to believe in the whole message of love, that really love is all there is. It might sound a bit corny, but I think there's just two ends of a continuum, either fear or love, and everything negative, all the negative emotions come from a place of fear, and all the positive emotions come from a place of love. And what the whales told me was, and it's not just for one species of whales, I've connected with several different kinds of whales, but they all are getting the same message, that they wish to imbue every molecule of water in the oceans with their love, so that when the oceans meet the shores, that the essence of this love will then be imbued into the land masses and therefore into us, so that we can start to begin to love ourselves more, and in so doing, we can then treat ourselves better and also our fellow man. And if we can all be coming from that place in our hearts, then there shouldn't be the need for power struggles, greed, wars, all those sorts of things, conflict. We should be in a much better space to be more accepting, less judgmental, more compassionate, all those sorts of things. And it's just been amazing that each different kind of whale has very much reiterated the very same message. So that sort of led me to believe that there's like a whale consciousness, that they are linking their messages, their wisdom, so that they can then pass it on to us or anybody who's open to listening to them, to share their message, to convey it and get it out there, which is what I've been compelled to do.
Madeline, this day and age, especially over the last 5 years, there's a lot of, focus or consciousness on what we call the power of intention and the law of attraction. And there was something in your book that really struck me as I was reading about the whale sharks. And I wanted to go ahead and read a paragraph about what the whale sharks have to say, which really, to me, falls in line with this power of intention or this law of attraction. And it simply goes like this. There is a pregnant moment where intention meets dream. Sometimes the energy it takes to create matter or action on Earth is difficult or takes time. Our mission and intention is to help speed the process up, although it would be hard to imagine it looking at our slow pace to help the universe manifest their dreams into matter. We hold the space and create energetics to help you hold your dream. We also create the space, the time, and the opportunity to experience the fruits of your intentions by having your dreams come true. That's a pretty powerful message coming from a whale shark. Tell us.
Well, they're pretty powerful animals.
Oh, yeah, especially when you swim next to the largest
I'm going back
fish
out
on
to
Earth.
Mexico in August to meet with them again, and the giant mantas, because they're, again, just amazing. And isn't that a beautiful message, that they're the dream keepers? They hold that space for our dreams to come true. I find that so beautiful.
Well, not to mention, the point being is that as humans, we tend to want to move things along at our pace. We want to, rush into things and simple, quicker, better, faster. Then we bring in this law of attraction and this power of intention, as though it should happen, tomorrow. But here, when you literally are at that slow pace as being described here by the whale shark, the truth is it comes a lot faster than you can force it to.
Absolutely. It's just, letting go of, you put the thought out there, you just let it go and just wait for magic to happen. And when you free yourself up from limitation, it can come to you in so many more magical ways. I mean, 10 years ago, if someone had told me that I would be doing what I'm doing now, I would have just laughed at them. I would never have believed it in a million years that I would be doing what I'm doing now. And I think it's because I put out there that I wanted to be of service to help animals and to understand them more. And when I went to meet the White Lions, Mark, we had to set our intention as a mission statement. And my mission statement was to be the voice of truth, to be the voice of truth for the animals, so that I would be passionate about relaying their messages in the very best way that I could, so that people would understand just how important the animal kingdom is to the planet. Because what happens to the animals on the planet, happens to us. If we destroy the animals, then we destroy ourselves. But as you said, intention is everything, and our thoughts, as you know, create our reality. So it's very important to be mindful of our thoughts, because we can create all sorts of things, and we barely scratch the surface of the power of our minds. So I just find that again fascinating.
Madeline, if you can, for our listeners out there, we're talking about the book The Whale Whisperer. She's an animal intuitive and communicator. Madeline, could you describe for our listeners how they can begin to connect and communicate with the animal kingdom?
Well, as I said before, we can all do this. It's nothing new. It's just being open to the possibility that we can, and not dismissing what you think might be just your imagination. So if you have any pets, you can just sit quietly with them. It's quite good to have a notepad and pen, and then just think a question. It can be something quite random, and then just see what might come back. And if you get something and you think, oh, it's probably just garbage, it's just my imagination, that's where it starts. If we could never imagine ourselves doing anything, we would never do anything. So it's just a way of just stretching those muscles and just practicing and just being open, and maybe finding a lovely place in nature. If you live in the city, maybe find a green area where perhaps there's a tree, or even if you've just got a window box, just imagine if the plant there could speak to you, what it might say, and just go with whatever comes. And when I teach people how to do this, it's such a thrill when they get a message and someone can validate it, and people are just so excited because they couldn't believe that they could actually get something right. They could get a message from an animal, and it's correct, and it's wonderful because it's so empowering, and it's also great fun.
Well, it certainly
sounds fun, because obviously
like it.
Some of the messages can be quite upsetting, because sometimes I can feel physical issues in an animal. So perhaps if a horse has got a bad back, or it's got problems with its teeth, sometimes I get a backache, or I feel a pain in my tooth. But it's just a way of them showing me what's going on, and perhaps they might show me a pain that's in their owner. So it's just a way of showing us. And sometimes we might see like a video clip of something. We might just see a picture, or we might, as I say, get a sensation, or just words in my head, which is how it started with the puppy. And then I got the visual image with the puppy changing shape. So again, it's just going with whatever comes to mind and trusting it, and just practicing and just stretching those intuitive muscles more and more. And the more you believe you can do it, it's like, not exactly fake it till you feel it, but the more you do it, the more easy it becomes, and the more mind-blowing it becomes.
Devin, any thoughts?
I think it's amazing. Madeline touched on it earlier, but maybe this is out of my own curiosity, Madeline. Would you ever try talking to, like, maybe a rattlesnake or a shark? Because I know when most people think of those animals, they don't think, oh, this animal is so nice and fluffy, I can just communicate with him.
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked to. I had an email from a lady, and she said to me, "How are you with snakes?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I think I'm okay with snakes." And she said, "Oh, that's good because I have 2 large anacondas."
Oh my!
Anacondas, huh?
I thought perhaps she had a little pet corn snake, but no, she had 2 really big anacondas.
Hopefully a good-sized tub for them as well.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a very big home that she had, but one was quite sick, so she was concerned about this female anaconda, so she asked me to come and see it to find out what was wrong with it. And it was a very big snake. And I just thought, it's okay. I just sent out lots of love from my heart, because love and respect are the most important things to give out when you want to connect with an animal. And the snake just sort of turned around, very big head, and looked at me, and I thought, ooh, and the owner said that I'm not really allowed to handle these snakes on my own, because if one gets around my neck, that's it. I've had it, really.
Oh, yeah.
Thought, okay, I can be brave. Anyway, the snake said that it was feeling depressed because it was picking up the emotions from its owner. And it told me some very personal things that no one could have known, and the owner was quite shocked. And she said, well, how would you know that? And I said, well, the snakes just told me about some very difficult times when this lady was a little girl, and very personal. And also other things that this lady was learning now, some quite shamanic practices. And this lady was so shocked because, you know, she said, well, I just don't know why would the snake know this? And I said, well, the snake is picking up from you, your emotions, and I believe that, you know, what's happened in the past has perhaps caused some depression within you, and the snake is really feeling that and wants to flag this up, that you need to address this to help you. And so the owner was quite shocked about this, but went to get help for her emotional issues and was feeling a lot happier in herself. And the snake started to pick up, obviously they don't eat very much, but the snake was not eating well at all and had got quite thin for a snake, even though to me it was had quite a wide girth for a snake. But the snake was a lot better and improved, you know, so much. So it was great because the owner got help, and the snake through that started to help itself again. So I felt that was amazing that the animals choose to go through for us to flag issues up that we need to address within ourselves.
Madeline, it's interesting when you talk about how people have the opportunity if they just exercise that ability within them to communicate with animals, and then Devin brings up sharks and rattlesnakes. There was actually
sharks are great. I mean, there's a message in the book about from a big tiger shark that I met out in the Bahamas, really about bringing up man's fear, and that's what, you know, the sharks are a perfectly evolved being. I mean, they're the most awesome creatures. And they've remained the same for thousands of years because they're perfect as they are. And, you know, we're killing them in their thousands just for a bit of soup stock. And it's heartbreaking because they are the most incredible creatures. But their message was about us addressing our issues with fear, because they do bring up quite a lot of fear within us. But they're just the most beautiful creatures.
Well, just like the movie Jaws, nobody wanted to go into the water after that. You know? And then there was this abuse of abandon. I mean, it's just quite amazing with this poor animal. I think they're beautiful animals. To me, they're like an ocean dog that you can just kind of go up and scratch, although they can, you know, bite you full of holes by accident. Usually is mostly the case. You know, they're a magnificent animal. But I was going to get to a quick story about a spider encounter that I had one time in my own home. And there I was, you know, watching a little television and working on a crossword puzzle, and all of a sudden I noticed this little spider approaching me on the floor, and he was about 3 feet away, and I looked at him. He was kind of cruising on a regular pace, and I said, no, you need to turn around and go back to where you were coming from. And it stopped for a minute, and it was about 3 feet from me, and I just sat there calm, just looking at it. And then it started nudging forward like a little kid that's trying to push boundaries. And I said, I told you no. Turn around and go back where you came from. and it sat there for a minute. And then it tried a couple more times, and I said, I told you no. And it simply turned around and went back to where it came from. That's a spider, for crying out loud.
Yeah, well,
you don't train spiders to do things like that.
you do now. Yeah, because, I believe that everything has a voice. Every cell has a voice. And I've had really profound messages from a housefly, and I met a cockroach in Mexico that did make me jump a bit. I was in my beautiful little beachside hut in this gorgeous hotel on this island where I go to swim with the whale sharks. And I had some crackers in the room, and I opened the box of crackers, and this huge cockroach jumped out. And it did make me jump. And I have to say I'm not that fond of cockroaches, so I respect them.
Especially after watching Joe's Apartment.
Anyway, I had this conversation with this cockroach, and I was only staying in this room for 2 nights, and I said, would it be okay if I put some crackers outside on the decking under the thatch? Would you stay outside just for two days, 2 nights, so I can not have to share my room, your room, with you? And it seemed to agree to that, and it sort of went out of the front out of the door onto the decking, and I put some crackers out there as I promised. And then the next day, I noticed it was on one of the railings, of the wooden railings of the decking, and it looked a bit droopy. Its antennae were all like dangling down, and so I gave it some healing. And as I was giving it some healing, it started to almost like be pumped up, and it seemed to become full of energy and full of life, and its antennae sort of came really upright. And it turned and looked at me and was waving its antennae at me, and it just gave me this message, and it said to me, you are so much more than you think you are. And I sort of thought, did that cockroach really say that to me? Because I was feeling a little bit, we get days of self-doubt and all these sorts of things, and I just couldn't believe that a cockroach could say that to me.
Well, think about it. The cockroach here can survive a nuclear, holocaust, for crying out loud. It'd be a creature to listen to.
Absolutely, absolutely. They've got some things we need to know, and again, but it just proved to me that everything can have a voice, and we just need to open our hearts and minds to hear it.
Wow, that's amazing. Usually when I see a bug in my house, I just kill him, but maybe I'll think twice about that now.
Well, I hope so. I had this housefly land on me, and I wasn't going to squash it, but normally, because it tickles a bit, you brush them away, you sort of swat them away, and I just stopped in mid sort of brush because it seemed to be stomping up and down my arm and really looking at me. So I thought, oh, okay. And I got this message from this fly that was looking at me with all its eyes very intently, saying to me, and what it said was, you have such a big heart for everybody and everything else, but why don't you let yourself in? And I thought, whoa, that's pretty deep from a fly. But it was absolutely right. I've been sort of giving and not really appreciating myself and not really honouring myself, trying to please everybody else and everything else. And it was absolutely right. And then it sort of looked, and almost I could sort of feel it saying, right, you got it, you heard it, have you taken it on board? And then it just flew off, and it left me completely stunned. I thought, okay, I've been told off and told exactly what to do by a fly. Isn't that amazing?
Wow, that's fascinating stuff.
Well, Madeline, even though I could go on and we could talk about this for a long time, we should perhaps invite you back for another opportunity here. The book is The Whale Whisperer, Healing Messages from the Animal Kingdom to Help Mankind and the Planet. Could you sort of, I guess, in closing, tell us, is there a general message that you've received from all of the animals that we humans, people, should really take to heart and begin to practice?
I think it's about really respecting the planet, really respecting ourselves, respecting our animals, and really being open to the belief that they can teach us so much about love and compassion. Despite the cruelty that humans inflict on animals, they're still willing to really help us and to re-empower us. As the Great White Lion says, we need to be lion-hearted in our endeavours to help the planet. So, and also they say to me, remember the bigger picture. And the more I learn from them, the bigger picture keeps getting bigger and bigger. So we have to really open our minds more and more to really start working with the planet instead of against it.
And they're also now saying, Devin, stop killing bugs. It's not good for you.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say that, I do have a bit of a problem with ticks. I find it hard to love ticks.
Yeah, well, that and ants.
Ants are pretty awesome when you learn more about how they interact in their colony and in their hill. But ticks, I do have a problem with ticks. I find that hard to love ticks. But then we all have challenges.
Yep, somebody's got to be the bad guy sometimes, don't they? Well, Madeline, I'd like to thank you for being here on the program today. Please give out a website people can find out more about your work. Okay,
my website is www.anexchangeoflove.com.
Very good. Madeline, thank you for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. Again, the book is The Whale Whisperer. Thanks again.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. I'm Daniel Davis. I want to thank you and both Devin DeCuna for joining us here on the Beyond 50 radio program. Be sure to visit us at our website, which is beyond50radio.com. That is the number 50. Sign up for our free weekly e-newsletter. Also be sure to visit our blog where we archive our shows and have great multimedia information for you to use and share with others. Along with Devin DeCuna, I'm Daniel Davis. Thank you for tuning in, and remember, live your day past halfway.